Hello, buenas tardes, buenas noches, buenos días, all of the above. Thank you for spending some of your Wednesday con Wilma. This is our second week of a Latina author for Latina Heritage Month. But before we get into the book, please like, share, subscribe. Don't be shy. Hit the like button. Drop a little comment. Give your girl some kudos or some direction. I'm not afraid of a little constructive criticism. And engage. Thank you. I appreciate your time. But let's get into This week we will be reviewing I Am Not Your Perfect Mexican Daughter by ERIKA L. Sanchez. This book, girl, it says I'm not your perfect Mexican daughter, but you can just take the perfect Mexican part of it and just insert I'm not your perfect Latina daughter, I'm not your perfect Puerto Rican daughter, I'm not your perfect Guatemalan daughter, because these themes of girlhood and responsibility is so universal. I saw myself in bits of Julia. I saw myself in Olga, in Julia's friend Lorena, in Angie, Olga's friend, and I know these older women. Ama and her Julia's friend's mother. Like I know these women. I've seen these women. I've experienced their hurt and trauma from my own observations, from my own tias. And the way Erica writes, it's so honest, just super honest. So it's set in Chicago. Family of four. Julia is the youngest, Olga is the oldest, and just this in service of a daughter, Olga. And unfortunately, tragedy strikes when Olga has untimely passed, and there's just so much uncovering. There's so much grief that's happening that in reading, I'm like, wow, you're really talking to your daughter in this space, or like the level of expectation, the comparison. There was just so much hurt generationally in this space. Julia has so much anger. Prior to Olga, there was just this knowing of like, she's the favorite. I know that y'all have a better relationship between mom and Olga, and I am here and I'm trying every day desperately thinking of a life when I'm not going to be here. Um, Apa, who she calls her father, there's this like theme in Latina culture, like either your father is extremely domineering and dominant and machista and very like the disciplinarian, or he's extremely passive. And that is exactly who Apa is, very passive, even prior to a understandable passiveness with the grief of a daughter. Like there's this explanation of like that's who he is. He's a factory worker. Both parents are of undocumented status, and he goes to work, he comes home, and like clockwork, he does it again. And I can see my father in that space when he was working before he was harmed on the job. Of like, I come home, I eat my dinner, I spend some time with y'all, but I gotta go lay down because I gotta do this all over again as the main provider of the home. Those family dynamics were just so brought up to me. Like I had to put the book down a few times because there was so much introspection of my own life where I was just like, is this play about us? Is this play about us? Like in more to the family dynamics, it's also a central theme of you don't know someone enough, even in life and even more so in death. So as Olga passes, everyone's going and taking the death of Olga very differently. All of them, rightfully so, all grief stricken. Um, but Julia uncovers some things that looks like Olga wasn't the perfect daughter, right? Like Olga starts to leave some breadcrumbs of a life of her own, in a way that like leaves Julia being like, did I really know my sister? Um, who was she? Because the way Julia explains who Olga is just that like she was homely looking, but she was sweet, she was kind, and she devoted her life to my mom and to my dad, and that's what she did. She worked and she provided. She was an additional provider in the home, but there is also a lot of judgment of like, I always wondered why she didn't go away to school. I wondered why she didn't do these things, in a way that's like they didn't have these conversations, they didn't have these openings. And more so, this book is about this lack of ability to be who you are. and the unwilling expectations that parents who migrate from their homeland for a better life put upon us in a way that, like, we didn't ask for this, right? Like, we're your children, but we are to have our own lives, but we're not really allowed to have our own lives. Because we come from you, there's this sense of feeling like they can control and guide, and it's like, no, you are to advise us, but we don't have to always take your advisement, or we are not your retirement plan, right? Like, as much as I want to help and give to you for my parents, for everything that you've done for me, that's not what my life is to be. And you left your countries for a quote unquote a better life, but then do not want your children to partake in that, or not want to understand that there's some give and take, right? Like, she talks about like her mom not even allowing them to ever eat McDonald's, and like being like, there's food at home and she's just like, I want to eat a cheeseburger. I want to eat Chinese food. And the way she talks about like her weight, and it's like, wow, the level of your first bully being your mom is real. I was reading the first few chapters, and I was just like, with a mom like that, how would you need an enemy? Like, she talks about like, oh, you weren't the clean one, Olga was. Like, why are you worried about what this house looks like? And it's like, she's concerned about you, right? She goes into her room and she's like, it smells in here. You can tell y'all haven't washed. Like, the house looks crazy, and she responds to her in that way, and it's like, Diablo, like, she can't be concerned. She's also still your child. And it's like, it's this really tough space that the parent is in, because yes, they've lost a child, but they still have the responsibility of being a parent to the other child who has lived. Mind you, Julia is already feeling guilty because of the fact that the day Olga died, she got in trouble in school, and so many things transpired that, had her parents not had to be in school with her, they could have picked up Olga instead of the accident that she got in. So it's like there's so much guilt and shame and grief. This book, oh my God, just touched on so many themes that I really could not get my head from spinning. Like, it was just so detailed in, I felt that before, or I know that, or even not just me seeing pieces of myself, I could easily attach my own sister's thoughts to this, right? Like, I know what it's like to be that adolescent and not feel close to my sisters at that age, and not feel like I can talk to them. Like, so much so that I had to sit back and be like, I didn't mend those relationships until I was an early adult, that I was able to sit down and have conversations with one of my older sisters in a way that I needed to still have with my other older sister, um, and really understand their experiences. Because as much as we have the same mom and dad, we've had them in different contexts. We've had them in different stages of their lives. And like, the mother my oldest sister received is very different from the mother that I received. She picked up some experiences along the way. She didn't want to remake some of the mistakes that she did, um, in a way that's like, this mother to Julia and Olga, you can clearly see is a different parent. You don't have to look back in it. How she treated Olga and that relationship that she had with Olga, completely different with Julia, because she doesn't understand Julia. She doesn't recognize or wants to even know. Like, there's a quote in the book that really speaks to that space of like, so she's going over this conversation with her friend Lorena, and randomly her mom is like, "Oh yeah, you know what we're gonna do? We're gonna throw you a quince." And she's like, "I already turned 15." Julia says to her, and she's like, "And I don't even want that. Mind you, they're not even celebrating it on her birthday." She's like, "Oh, I never gave Olga one, so I'm gonna give you one." And Lorena really speaks to her because she goes to her home to go on the internet because they don't have it at their home. And she goes, I can't imagine you in one of those dresses, Lorena laughs. I don't even know what your mom is thinking. It's like she doesn't know you. or she doesn't even care. That was so telling to me of being like, I'm gonna do this whether you like it or not. And I have been in those spaces with my parents and being like, but I don't want to do that. And like, you're also not doing this for me, which is what Julia is saying. Like, you're doing this for the family, and where are we getting this money from? And it's like, they it bothers them about Julia because she is so vocal. Even so much in school, she's vocal that she's always getting in trouble. Um, but either way, it was really telling of that relationship between Ama and Julia, where it's like, whatever, it doesn't matter what you want, I don't care. This is what we're doing at your expense. And I couldn't stop thinking like, how often do we do that in our own families? How we don't validate our children's experience because we don't see them as the humans that they are, of the grown-ups that they're going to grow into eventually, and how that people pleasing behavior starts at such a small age or even into adolescence, where it's like you're just going to do as you're told and that's it. You have no thoughts or feelings of evolving this. Yeah. This quote also in the book really jumped out to me a lot in regards to Amma and who she is. As I also was comparing it to my own mom in a way, as also now being an adult and knowing my biological family and my chosen family and being a part of villages, being a part of many people's villages in my friend group. I even text a friend of mine of who she currently works at my niece's school, and she was telling me how she like makes it, a part of her day to like go say hi to her and talk to her. And I felt so much love in that moment because it was like I texted her, we are the villages our mothers deserved, right? Like I couldn't even think about who was a friend to my mom outside of family. Because I don't really think my mom really grew up with girlfriends. She only had her family. To the point where even me growing up, my first friends were my cousins, and then it was like strangers who became friends. But in chapter 5, it goes, Amma doesn't have any friends, and she sees no point to having any. She says all a woman needs is her family. According to her, only orphans and whores run around in the streets by themselves. If Amma isn't working, shopping for groceries, or cooking and cleaning at home, she's usually with my aunts or her comadre Juanita, who is also her cousin. Oh, and on Saturdays and Sundays, she's at church. She hardly leaves our neighborhood. Her world seems small. And in my opinion, that's how she wants it. Maybe it runs in the family because Olga was like that too. And it's like a lot of that is distrusting, right? I can get not knowing this land enough to like make friends and understand. Maybe there's language barriers, but also too so much so that you don't have this social circle. And I wish that for our parents that they had that maybe they had that support. Maybe they could have named postpartum depression more. Maybe they could have named, hey, this isn't the perfect marriage for me. Maybe we can talk about some DV and some resources, or I'm just struggling here in this space in a way that I see now being cultivated more in my friend group. That I truly wish that for our elders or for our older generations, I wish that they had more of that camaraderie outside of their family, because sometimes it's yeah, I talk to my aunts and my cousins, but it's like, do they really understand, or they're just brushing it away like, oh, así son las cosas, like that's just how things are. Um, that I think that sometimes a little outside perspective can give that. Um, through good friends, and sometimes like just letting people show up for you. I just wish that maybe that would have eased some of the anxieties in the women in my family, would have brought more comfort for them in a way that I don't think I saw growing up. But yeah, this book is a 5-star read. Like, please pick this up, give yourself time to digest it. It touches on so many themes of family and girlhood and grief and exploration of knowing the people that you love before they pass away, because we all think that we're going to be here for a long time and that we can mend relationships and we can figure these things out. Her sister died of a freak accident. Like, she didn't have the time to really learn and teach Julia who she really is, or that yes, I'm able to give of myself from my parents, but I'm also able to live a life of my own, in my own way. Overall, it was an amazing book. Amazing. This is one of those books that we can go on and dissect. And I wish I was part of a book club to go on and on and on. But Erika, you did an amazing job with this book. Gracias, gracias, gracias. Your writing is so raw in this space. I absolutely loved it. Thank you for this book. That's it for this week with Wednesday con Wilma. Thank you so much for tuning in. As always, read what entertains you, and you will find yourself reading. Thank you so much again. Gracias. Cuídense. Ciao. Bye.